Hi, welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas Wonder podcast. We're so excited you're here. If you're new, welcome. And if you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and do so now. That way you know when the next episode airs. Christmas is now 3 days away. You can feel the anticipation, especially amongst all the kids. They can't wait to see what Santa has brought. And some of them have their own little plan to try and catch him in the act, with the desire to prove whether or not he's real. They're not alone. The toys often wonder this question too, as Abbie Phillips Walker shares with us in her story what Santa Claus told the toys. It's a cute little story, and it helps answer a lot of the questions regarding the truth about Santa. So, grab your favorite hot drink, a cozy blanket, and let's get settled. What Santa Claus told the toys. It was the night before Christmas in the playroom. The toys that had lived there all the year were pushed back to the wall to make more room for the big tree and all the new toys that were expected from Santa Claus. "Of course, it's all very plain to us," said French Doll, who was put aside last Christmas for a big dog on wheels. "We, of course, know there's no real Santa Claus." "I am not so sure about that, Marie," said Teddy Bear. "I remember perfectly well seeing Santa Claus in the shop where I came from, and then later here in this very room." "Oh, you silly," said Marie, with a toss of her pretty head. "That was the father of the little mistress dressed up. Didn't you know that?" "Oh, no," said Jumping Jack. "I could tell a lot of things if I chose. I lived in a shop a long time before I came here. And the things I saw, well, I know, but I won't tell." "So do I," said Woolly Lamb. "Just before Christmas funny sights I have seen. White wigs and long white beards and red caps. But I know there is a Santa Claus because I saw him many times." "That proves what I said," replied Marie. "There isn't any real Santa Claus. The fathers dress up like one. That is all there is to it." "I am sure there is a Santa Claus," said an elephant on wheels, "because I remember I lived with him before I came here. He had a jolly red face, and he made me, I think. There were a lot of us then," he sighed. "I know there must be a Santa Claus," said Little Sailor Doll, "because he brought me here in a bag on his back. I remember I nearly fell out looking to see where I was going." "I don't care what you silly boys think," said Marie. "I know I was in a box, and I came in a trunk across the water. The little mistress's aunt brought me, and then I was put in a drawer until Christmas." "But how did you get in here if Santa Claus did not bring you?" asked Teddy Bear. "I told you," said Marie. "The little mistress's father brought me in here. But that is not a real Santa Claus, and you said there was one." Just then a noise was heard in the hall, and the door opened, and in came Santa Claus with a big pack on his back. "It beats the Dutch," he said, "to get into these houses where there are no fireplaces. How can they expect Christmas presents with no chimney that leads to a fireplace? And all the doors locked, too." Every toy kept still and looked at Marie. She was staring hard at Santa as he unpacked his gifts and put some on the tree and some under it. Just as he was going, Teddy Bear spoke to him in a very timid voice. "Santa Claus, won't you please tell us something?" "Of course I will if I can," replied Santa. He slipped his pack off his back and sat down on the floor cross-legged. "Now go ahead, Teddy. What is it you want to know?" "Marie says there isn't a real Santa Claus at all," said Teddy. "She says you are the little mistress's father dressed up." Oh, dear me, laughed Santa Claus. How's that old story started again? Why, of course there is a Santa Claus. Don't I look real? And there are lots of helpers, of course, for how could I be everywhere at the same time? That is the reason there are Santa Claus wigs and beards and caps and things. Somebody has to dress up like me to help out. But you can be sure the real Santa Claus brings the presents, though his helper often gives them out. But you cannot be too sure, for often I fool the children and am right there when they think it is their father dressed up. But Marie said she came across the sea, said Teddy, and never lived at your house at all. Marie, said Santa Claus, looking at her very sharply. Do you remember a little shop where you first lived, where the sun shone in through the skylight? Yes, sir, said Marie, very meekly. Well, that was one of my shops, said Santa. And though you cannot remember, I will tell you that you were not so pretty once as you are now, because I saw you before your pretty curls were put on, and when your pretty eyes were not in your head. You see, my dear, you cannot remember because you could not see me. That is no reason there is not a real Santa Claus. Don't forget that. I have brought a set of furs for you too, Marie, and a little suitcase. How could that have happened if I were not real and did not know all about you? Good night, children. A Merry Christmas. And remember, there is a real Santa Claus, because you have seen him. Marie pretended to be asleep when Teddy Bear spoke to her, but she was wide awake the next morning before it was light, when the lights were turned on in the playroom, and the little mistress came in. In a few minutes the door at the other end of the playroom opened, and in came Santa Claus. Merry Christmas, he said to the little mistress, and then he turned to all the toys by the wall. Merry Christmas, toys, old and new, he said, and Marie, who was looking at him, thought she saw a very merry twinkle in his eye as he looked at her. But never again on Christmas Eve did anyone in the playroom hear Marie say there was no real Santa Claus. There must be, of course, else how would she get a gift each year? The end. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this story. It is such a cute story. I look forward to sharing a new one with you tomorrow.